Hello, my name is Kenya Guest, and I teach second grade in Onaway Elementary School. We are here at Shaker Middle School for the FACE Academy session with Caring Schools Community. We cannot wait to share this new program that we are using with our parents and families, and we hope that you enjoy. Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and get started so that we are honoring your time. So I am Rebecca Sharp. I am the choir and orchestra teacher here at the middle school.
My name is Kenya Guest. I am a second grade teacher at Onaway Elementary School.
And my name is Marie Carter. I am a sixth grade math teacher at Woodbury.
We are going to talk to you a little bit this evening about Caring School Community, which is a new program and initiative that Shaker has adopted this year in grades K through 8. So we'll have a chance to go around and introduce ourselves.
Sure. MJ LaPerch, our daughter is a first grader on the way.
I'm Jen Weisbarth. I'm an instructional coach at the middle school.
I'm Bill Sickling. We have a daughter at Woodbury in sixth grade.
We have the same thing, the Mel Sickling.
So we are recording this because a lot of parents have questions about Caring School Community. So I just want to share why we're speaking into a microphone, even though it's a small group. We are recording this so that families that are new to Shaker or who couldn't make it tonight can also be a part of the information. So the first thing that we're going to do now that we know each other's names and we're all wearing name tags is use a greeting that is actually used in Caring School Community. So we will start in model and then we'll kind of just move around a circle. So, good evening, Kenya. How are you?
Good evening, Rebecca. I am excited. How are you?
I am excited as well.
Good evening, Desmarie. How are you today?
Good evening, Kenya. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good evening, Mile. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Come talk to him? Yes. Good evening. Bill? How are you?
Good evening, Mal. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good evening, Jen. How are you?
Good evening, Bill. I am happy. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good evening, MJ. How are you today?
Good evening, Jen. I'm good. How are you?
I am relieved.
One more, we got to complete the circle.
Great. All right. Good evening, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm good. MJ, how are you?
I'm excited.
And so our day in elementary school, our day begins with a morning circle that's much like this one. And as you can see, it's kind of opens up for some giggles, for us to share how we're feeling, for friends to get comfortable with one another. It might look a little bit different in the other two buildings, but it does open us up for everyone to start the day on a positive note, to look everyone in the eyes, give eye contact, and to also hear their name in the morning, and to be able to address other students with their name.
And also, too, a part of our caring school communities, at the door, I try to greet everyone with a friendly smile or a handshake. Sometimes with the students, we do a fist bump or elbow. So just to build that rapport and that relationship as soon as they come into the room. So that was the reason why I was at the door trying to greet everyone, get to know you before you even entered.
And then following our greeting is usually, it can consist of brief announcements or news about the day, an activity that we will hopefully be able to model for you all during this session. And it's just a quick time for us to start the day together and start it well.
Okay, so we are going to go to the next slide and go over the agenda. And then since we've had 3 people join us, we're going to loop back around and just, if you wouldn't mind sharing your name and what school building your students are in so we kind of know No, absolutely. It's cold, it's snowy, and all of that. No worries.
Here at the middle school, and I have one at the high school now, so in ninth grade. So
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Megan. I've won an Honorary in Miss Guest Class and a future honorayer next year.
Thank you.
I'm Colleen Ward, and my children are in 8th grade, 9th grade, and 11th grade.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Okay, so a brief overview of what we're going to do today. We already did our welcoming circle activity. We're going to give you an overview of Caring School Communities. We're going to talk a little bit about how it is aligned to the Ohio Department of Education, how it is aligned to Shaker. Then we're actually going to do an activity in the circle, not introducing ourselves again, but an actual activity that your students did during week 7, which was developing empathy. Then we're going to have a chance to debrief, answer some frequently asked questions for you, and then also give you the opportunity to ask us some questions since we represent grades K through 8. So the goal of the Caring School Community approach, and I'm going to read this verbatim because I think it's important to get all of the high points, is that Caring School Communities is designed to help students become caring, responsible members of their school communities, and ultimately grow into humane, principled, and skilled members of a democratic society. They do this by focusing, or we do this, I should say, by focusing on the priorities you see here. So these 4 priorities are things that we as teachers are becoming more familiar with, and also the students, because they're doing this every day, are becoming familiar with. So we are building caring relationships with and among students. We are directly teaching social skills. We are creating calm, orderly learning environments through the use of effective classroom management practices, and we're helping students acquire self-discipline through a caring and effective approach to discipline. Something that we realize, especially by the time they get to middle school, is that we find ourselves thinking students should know how to behave, students should know how to act, students should know how to handle certain situations. But just like we teach and reteach things in our content, behavior and social and emotional learning is something that we have to support and reteach when students are struggling, and this approach definitely helps us to do that.
In Caring School Communities, it's a 2-pronged approach. We look at proactive and responsive activities and approaches. So the primary goal is a whole group and individual support for discipline. So the primary goal of Caring School Communities' approach to discipline is to help the students acquire self-discipline. That is, to build self-control, conscious, and a sense of responsibility from within. The program accomplished this goal through a dual approach. The strong, proactive, whole class SEL instruction found in our teacher's manual, and we do have a teacher's manual here that you can glance through during our presentation, is to establish effective discipline with the whole class. The one-on-one interventions found in our Caring School discipline help teachers work with individual students who need additional support. The dual-facet approach to discipline is based on the assumption that all students want to and can behave well at school, and they are capable of learning and changing their behavior. The program nurtures students' innate drive and teaches them how to behave by guiding teachers to creating caring and supportive communities, effectively managing their classrooms, treat students with respect at all times, treat misbehave as mistakes, and we hone on that, treat misbehavior as mistakes, similar to mistakes made in academic work, not as signs of moral or character flaws. We also focus on what students can do to repair any damage they have caused or what they might do differently in the future, rather than making students feel guilty or ashamed about their misbehavior.
We like to include families in the Caring School Community approach. So we have weekly activities to help enhance the communication between classrooms and families. It can vary from classroom to classroom per the teacher or the building. but it helps students talk with family members about what the social development focus is for that week in the classroom so that students can make that connection. It's not just something we should be working on in school, but also at home. So some teachers may use this approach and send the home connection. Some may not, or some buildings may not. But I think it's a good way for students to make that connection that this can be something for in school and for outside of school. Their home connection activities are available in English and Spanish, and grades 6 to 8 have them occasionally. So it kind of varies, but the component is included in the first few weeks of the program, and then they kind of are per the teacher. What is also really unique about Caring School Communities is that it's integrated across the curriculum. So there can be different subjects taught within the Caring School community through the activities, math, science, technology, health. And it's a time not just for social emotional, just like IB really doesn't isolate subjects, it really does integrate the curriculum that the students are working on in Shaker. As far as, I would say, rigor, the curriculum, it really does hold students to high expectations.
Just like the state standards, there are standards in math, science, social studies, all of the subject areas. There are also social emotional learning standards. So over a 10-month period, Ohio educators, counselors, social emotional learning experts created the standards seeking to develop the whole child. Because we all know that emotionally, we want our students to be emotionally attached. We want them to be academically attached, but we also know social emotional information and knowing about our students is also important. All Caring School community activities fall into one or more of these categories shown here. This program ensures that each of these standards is met with every student. This does not mean that we are solely doing this for the purpose of compliance. The vision of Shaker as a district is very much in alignment with these standards. The quote here from the Ohio Strategic Plan for Education 2019-2024 reads, Ohio aspirational state level vision for pre-K education. In Ohio, each child is challenged to discover and learn, prepared to pursue a fulfilling post-high school path, and empowered to become a resilient, lifelong learner who contributes to our society.
So now that we know a little bit about how Caring School Community relates to what all students K-12 in the state of Ohio should be doing, it's important to highlight how it connects to what we're already doing in Shaker, because it does very much connect with things that we are doing and things that are important to us as a community. So first of all, at the beginning of the school year, Dr. Glasner announced his two priority areas of focus, which are Black student excellence and school culture and climate. Caring School Communities fits right in with culture and climate. In our strategic plan, one of the things that we said was that we were going to implement Caring School Communities in grades K through 8 to build consistent social and emotional learning practices across the building and grade levels. In addition to this, we're saying that by focusing on social emotional learning through Caring School Communities, PBIS, and restorative justice, it is a goal of the district to reduce suspensions by 10%. So again, it ties right into school culture, because when students aren't present and don't value the school culture by being here, it affects the overall culture of the building. And then some other goals that have been stated from the board are to create positive school learning environments and reduce the number of serious discipline events by 10%.
So this might be what you see if you were to come into one of our elementary school class meetings. We would be in a circle, sitting in our chairs, and it would really be the students having the discussion. I would really just be facilitating the focus for the week and kind of asking ourselves to reflect on how did we do this week. If we're working on this week, we're working on mean behavior in my classroom. So how are we doing on accessing kind ways to speak to one another? What have you done this week that is the opposite of mean behavior? How can you take this practice and use it at home? So that they're really thinking about, well, this isn't just something I should be thinking about in the morning time, but I should actually be using this throughout the day. Someone's going to hold me accountable for it throughout the week. And so class meetings are really important because the students get to share their concerns. If they did experience maybe some mean behavior throughout that week, they would be able to share, this is what happened, this is how I felt, and I'd like to address it with the class. So it's really important that we have those class meetings so that students know that their voices are being heard.
And at Woodbury, we also have class meetings. We don't get the opportunity to do it daily, but we have advisory at least once or twice a week. So this is a time where well, as a classroom teacher, I get the opportunity to sit with my homeroom a little bit longer than the first 10, 15 minutes of the day. And then we can discuss different topics. I can sometimes just do a quick check-in to make sure the kids are okay. Again, we are sitting around in a circle. We start off with the greeting, and then we go into specific topics based off the classroom needs. And if there's a topic that we sit down as a team of teachers and say, let's address this topic, that's the topic that we focus on. So it looks pretty much the same, maybe not on a daily basis, but at least a weekly basis, we get a chance to sit in a circle and talk.
At the middle school, it's just a little bit different because right now we don't have a homeroom or an advisory. So each week a different department is doing Caring Schools Community. So we are kind of embedding our class meetings into the curriculum that is prescribed for the week. But one good thing is that we are currently looking at our schedule and kind of investigating some options for getting that 30 to 40-minute period of advisory in so that we can really have time to focus on the social emotional learning of the students in grades 7 and 8.
I would like for you to quietly read this quote, and there are a couple of questions that I would like for you to think about as you are reading this quote. What are some ways that our current discipline practices help our students develop self-discipline? And what are some things we might want to think about as we consider how we currently manage our discipline practices? So I'll repeat the question. What are some ways that our current discipline practices help our students develop self-discipline? And what are some things we might want to think more about as we consider how we currently manage our discipline practices? Now, this is another activity that we practice in our Caring School Communities is Think, Pair, Share. So you had a chance to think. Now I would like for you to turn to an elbow buddy and share what some thoughts from the two questions that I asked, or any other questions that may have come up as you read this quote. We had a chance to think on our own. We had a chance to pair up and share with a partner. Would anyone like to share their thoughts or new thoughts as they had a chance to discuss this information?
Well,
Just
one
in
thought
case.
we just had at the end, kind of maybe not knowing all the discipline things and just starting the caring circles when they're in the elementary. But then you talked about at Woodbury that, you only get it maybe once a week. And we talked about how that's the age that they finally all come together. So it's maybe even more important in the 5th and 6th that they get it more often, because they might know their small community, but then coming together again is a big deal. And I think in other communities where typically that happens in a middle school more often, but by middle school for us, they already have been together a little while. So I don't know what else.
Also
Yeah.
interesting, given the new.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Taking notes.
Also interesting, given that at Woodbury, they're moving towards, or this year they have moved towards more of a middle school approach with the 4 disciplines, and the classrooms. The classrooms, to me, sound more like a middle school than they did elementary school. So I think that's a great point.
Thank you for your feedback. Okay, anyone else?
How often do they meet in middle school? Is it once a week or is it more often?
It's every day in middle school,
Yeah.
but each week it's a different teacher.
Right, that's what I thought.
Like a week with your science teacher, and then maybe your math teacher. So it is every day, but the teacher rotates, and then therefore also the other students in the room with you are different each week too.
Which I think is really good, and I think at middle school it's really important.
It's interesting because you have to pair with different people and get to know different people, so.
I thought that's how they did it, at least when
Yes.
I first thought they were doing it, but then I wasn't sure.
And at Woodbury, the first 10 weeks of school, we did it every day, but it rotated throughout the disciplines. So like one day the math teacher would do it, then science, so it rotated. So they did have it every day. And then after the 10 weeks, we decided as a team what subjects we wanted to concentrate on, depending on, what our students' needs were. And now they do it once a week or twice a week, depending on how the schedule.
in Woodbury this year, right?
Yes, the advisory period is new for us. And the schedule. Yes, the Karen, the schedule and the Karen School Communities.
Here, we can't really see, but these are my actual lovely students at the beginning of the year, and they are doing Think, Pair, Share with one another. And I just think it's so special because they do get to have conversations with students that they might never have, or they've never been in the same classroom as them before. And it really opens them up to new friendships, new relationships, new similarities between each other. And they get to know each other. So at the beginning of the year, we were really just getting to know each other. But I think that it really does promote excellence through the program by encouraging self-discipline. It's aligned with the goals, it's implemented K through 8, and then we've really seen growth in less than 90 days. So when we were kind of observing the data for this, it was less than 90 days, and I was thinking, I have really seen students grow in the way that they communicate with one another in our school. We've kind of talked about as a building at Onaway that we weren't really seeing students say like good morning if teachers are saying good morning or hello or just regular social skills. Students weren't responding as much, and within 90 days students were giving eye contact, saying good morning to one another, to adults, to peers, asking if their friends are okay, if they needed help, just simple things that can be difficult to teach in line with just math, reading, social studies, science, those types of subjects. And it's necessary for a lot of the group work that they do with IB, elementary, all the way up to high school and beyond. So, oh, Lordy, I think that's important. That's okay. There we are.
Okay, so just quickly, from each of the 3 different age groups, we'll give you some glows and grows. So glows are that I can echo in middle school are 7th and 8th graders, which is an age where Now we're not so much using the good morning and being kind because we don't so much know it. We're not doing it because it's the mean girl, mean boy kind of thing. I have the biggest glow, I would say, is that their vocabulary of saying to each other, I'm really trying to be empathetic, but if you can't just, and it's like, okay, maybe your tone could be a little bit better, but I appreciate that you said something about being empathetic. So it really is empowering our middle school students at a really tough time developmentally and giving them tools and the vocabulary to talk to each other. Communication is big. They spend so much time on their phone and on electronics. So them being able to have hard conversations with each other is a really important thing, and there's been a lot of growth there. A grow would just be the scheduling, and I think our administration is doing a phenomenal job in looking at the schedule for next year so that the schedule isn't a barrier. But right now, that is kind of our biggest area of growth. Is just for us to have it at the same time every day and really dedicate time to making sure that we have enough time to go through the curriculum. And I've already kind of included some of the issues that are specific to middle school with the technology and kind of what they're going through socially. So that's middle school.
At Woodbury, I think we're having some of the introduction to some of the issues as far as, like the mean girl, mean boy. But I feel like this year, students are communicating better. They're actually communicating more with us as teachers because they know, how to communicate if something is going wrong and something is going right. And that's really big, especially when they're, at an age where, they're learning how to advocate for themselves. Especially, and then I've been getting a lot of feedback from the parents. They feel that there's a sense of community. They feel that their child is, learning, they're gaining more friends. So the feedback from both the parents and the students is pretty good. And also, I feel that, especially for our team, we're working together as a community. Even though we're bigger as a team, we're still working together to make sure that, all students are moving forward and looking at misbehaviors and, understanding, where they're coming from and, what areas we can help them in. A grow, like you mentioned before, a lot of the students this is their first time together, coming from multiple school buildings. And even though we went full throttle the first 10 weeks, as a teacher, I kind of do miss that daily interaction with them or seeing that progression, those community meetings that we're Team Rockets. So just, not seeing that daily interaction and sense of community every day. But, this is our first year doing this. That's why I was taking notes so that I can bring that information back to our building so that, when we are looking at scheduling, we are looking at students and what's best for them, it's good to have our feedback.
And from the K-4 perspective, I would say a glow is definitely that students are learning how to handle their own situations. So I don't have to necessarily hear a lot of the tattletelling. All the situations don't come to me. They are able to really mediate their own problems. And of course, I'm still kind of prompting them, but to say, well, Miss Guest, so-and-so did this to me. Well, what did you say to them? Did you share with them how that made you feel? And they're like, oh, yeah, let me go and try that. And so just having the ability, like reinforcing that every single day, it really does help, and it takes a lot off of me because they are learning how to do this on their own. So I would say that is a huge glow. A grow, I think I would say, we've got the time. Another glow I would say is that I've shortened it in my classroom to about 15 to 20 minutes. So it's really efficient. We get a lot in that 15 to 20 minutes. But maybe the grow would be at the beginning of the year, it took a while to get started, it took a little bit more instructional time, but now they know the routine, they know what's coming next. It's just introducing a new topic, and so that would be my grow from before, but we've improved it already. And yeah.
Question. Julia, the middle and poly Woodbury level.
We're recording it, that's the, we're not just we.
I'm sorry, that's right.
We're recording it, so we want to.
So I don't have to be the mass singer, right? One of the things, because I have older kids, and when they first started the community circles, there was when you have so many different teachers and subjects, there's the buy-in of all the teachers. I think at the elementary school level it's easier, but how is the buy-in going with the, particularly middle school teachers, that it's sort of out of the box for them? Are you getting more of them to really, embrace this and work through it, or how do you handle the ones that are a little more challenging?
I would say that the middle school had several different initiatives that we took on this school year. So when we were seeing, I don't even think it's necessarily fair to say that teachers weren't buying in. There was just a lot going on in August. And I'll be honest as a teacher and say, I want to buy in, I want to be committed, but when there are different things that I have to do, it can be tough. As we are moving through the school year, we have done some things to kind of make it easier and more accessible. So for example, each week that a department is going to kind of trade off doing Caring School Community, their department leader will put together a Google Slides presentation similar to this, so that all I have to do is open it, I can do it, and then I can get back to my curriculum. Because since we are embedding it within the classrooms, it is we want it to be meaningful, but we also want it to be organized and concise, so that when we do move back into our curriculum, that we have the full remaining 25 to 30 minutes for curriculum. So once we kind of organize it that way, I would say buy-in. And again, I don't think it was that people weren't buying in, I think it was that people were overwhelmed. But when we made it more manageable, then the buy-in definitely increased. Did you want to share anything?
I'm not quite sure. We're not as organized as the middle school on that end, at least not my team. But we found that when we work on social emotional learning, the interruptions in the classroom decreased. It wasn't, even though, on the front end, we felt that it was taken away from instructional time. I just want to be honest. I mean, that's what I felt. But I also know, as a teacher, it's very important to create that community and to address, issues so that it won't continue to be issues throughout the school year, and it kind of sucks up and drains the students and takes down the energy of the classroom. So, and I'm just talking from my experience, but I just know, it's important to build that community in the beginning. Because if you don't build that community in the beginning, it's going to be, downhill almost. Not downhill, but it's just going to be a tug of war all year. So, and that's the last thing you want to do.
I'll add on to that. I happened to be at a meeting with, it happened to be with my older son, 8th graders who already switched to 9th, and they were just talking about, because I think you guys did circles last year anyway a little bit. I forget what they called that.
Community circles.
Community circles. And so some of the parents just kept saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe they do this, to take the time to do this. They're taking out of instructional time, so I get that for you as a teacher as well. But as a whole, especially adding technology into our kids' lives right now, I think it is so important that we are teaching them those social skills, because it's so easy. And I mean, as a parent and having so many different ages, I read a lot on all of that coming into their lives, and to be able to give them the circles and to work on this is such a huge thing. And I think it would be very interesting. I don't know if they will do research on us as a whole for this program, because I think it would be very interesting to watch the kids who are the beginning of this and what they look like in Woodbury and then in the middle school and high school, and to see if there's, you know, kind of a pack of 4 years or whatever it is that you just notice a big difference. So,
Thank you.
Taking notes.
So we are going to move now into, like, I hope what is everybody's favorite part, and we're gonna do an abbreviated caring school community activity. Now, I will give you this disclaimer. It's an activity I did with my 8th graders. They say it was their favorite one, but we all know if you've had an 8th grader, 8th graders can be tricky. So I hope that you, like it, because when they voted, this is the one that they said they thought parents would enjoy most. So I think Desmarie and Kenya are gonna participate in the circle with you, and I'm gonna kind of walk you through some of the steps. So the first thing is, however you are comfortable, closing your eyes, putting your head down, just listening, I'm going to read several scenarios to you, and I just want you to quietly or silently think about how each one would make you feel. So the first scenario is, you're a firefighter in a dangerous fire. Next scenario, you're in an advanced skating competition. Next scenario, you've been awarded a Nobel Peace Prize for your outstanding work in fighting poverty. Next, you've recently started your own software company. Next, you're an expert hang glider safely landing in the midst of a cheering crowd. And finally, you're one of the leading actors in a blockbuster movie. So, what we are going to do is you're going to select one of the 6 scenarios that we just went over, and I will flip back to that side in 1 second. You will, with an elbow buddy, discuss how you would feel in the chosen scenario and why, and then we'll do some sharing out of which scenario you chose and how you and your partner would feel. So these are the 6 scenarios. Go ahead and pick one to discuss with your partner, and I'm gonna set a timer for 2 minutes because that's what we would do during Caring Schools Community, and at that point in time, we'll share out. Timeout. So this is another strategy that we use, actually K-12 and Shaker, called Give Me 5, where teachers, instead of yelling or even counting down, anywhere in the district, we hope, that an adult or anyone does this, students K-12 know that that means that we need their attention. Would anybody like to share out about what they discussed with their partner? Were your feelings the same? Did you think the same scenario, but you had very different feelings about it? Anything that anybody would like to share? Thank you, MJ.
No problem. Sorry. We picked the Nobel Peace Prize bit. I think we had the same sort of sentiments, that it felt like this is great, but there's a lot of work to be done. Also feel in that scenario that we all felt, I would say, is if you're in that position, if you're someone who's kind of in that world, you know the work's never done. So it's like, at what point is it satisfying in the moment? And how long does that moment last? You know, it's just something sort of heavy. And, you know, that's what we kind of kept going back to.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So we discussed our feelings, but I thought it was most interesting that Bill noticed that you can kind of, there was a flow from firefighter to blockbuster movie. It was kind of going from most scary to most exciting, if you looked at it that way. And then I thought it would be interesting to have students maybe rank these and to use the words like most comfortable to uncomfortable, because some students might be shy in front of getting in a camera, more shy, they'd rather fight a fire or hang glide or be in an advanced skating competition. So it will be interesting to see if the students would rank those from most comfortable to uncomfortable, where they would lie on that, and then they could see who they had something in common with. So thanks, Bill, for that. I might have to take it.
Anyone else want to share?
I didn't get a chance to share this with my group because we focused more on the Nobel Peace Prize, but as a firefighter in a dangerous fire, just I would feel terrified, but I know I have a responsibility. So with that, there may be multiple emotions that a person may feel in that situation, but when they know that they have a responsibility and this is their job, this is their requirement, this is what they're called to do, so that fear has to turn in, this is what I'm called to do no matter what the outcome may be. So
Thank you. So a question that we would ask the 8th graders, and a few of us can share, is, have you ever imagined what it would be to be in someone else's shoes? Why is this important? Have you heard the term empathy, and what does it mean to you? So I'm going to go out on a limb and guess we've all heard it, but is there anything important about empathy or imagining what it would be like to be in someone else's shoes that anybody would like to share? And how does imagining what it would be like in someone else's shoes related to the activity we did? That's probably the most important piece. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Thank you, Megan.
I think it's good for kids to think about, and adults too, about how, even about the firefighter one, I had a similar reaction, like, people are counting on me in there, but I am scared, because I know that there's an element of danger for everybody involved. So I think it's good for kids to think about that, because even as an adult, sometimes I don't think that way. I think that when something happens, everyone will react the same way, but really, they're coming from a different place, and they'll expressing empathy is seeing how they're taking it rather than assuming they feel the way I do.
Absolutely, thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts? So that was an abbreviated version. If we were doing this with students, depending on the age, there would be more time for discussion and some follow-up activities. So now kind of back into your parent hat, and these are up there, but you can kind of answer whichever of the four, all four, just one. What did you like about the activity, both as a participant and as a parent thinking of your child participating? And then are there any things that you would change from the participant perspective or from the thought of your child partaking in the activity? So kind of glows and grows as both a participant and a parent. Anything anyone would like to share?
I have a quick question. I'm curious what your reactions are. I can kind of see circle time in elementary school. And as you bring that up through middle school and into through Woodbury and into the middle school, what kind of buy-in and what kind of challenges do you have with the students at that level?
I'm so glad you asked that. That's one of the most frequently asked questions, especially in the middle school, because people are thinking, like, I know my 14-year-old at home, like, what is he or she giving you? And I would say that it's like just about anything else as a teacher. It's the energy we bring to it, and it's how interesting we make it. So something as simple as I'm reading them and they're not engaged. Like, in your teacher brain is like, okay, let's have us rank them. Like, let's turn it into a debate. One thing I know about these kiddos, they like to argue. Which one is the most scary, and tell me why? Because at the end of the day, they're still learning about empathy, talking about empathy. But in every class is different too, because we split it up the way that we do. So I have one 8th grade class that's all about, I want to sit on the floor, I want to sit next to Ms. Sharp, we're going to do it. And then I have one class that's like, nope, we're too cool for this, I'm staring off into space. So it's really just about knowing the kids and making it relatable and engaging for them, which sometimes is a task. I believe in being fully honest. But when they see that we as the teachers are engaged and believe it's important, usually that will help them to see the value in it, even if it's not maybe their favorite Caring School community activity.
I think that's a great answer.
Oh, well, thank you.
And then also, with me teaching math, I'm always serious, on target, bell work, classwork. So having that time to kind of just, relax in a class and actually talk, the students are more geared to that instead of that regimented, let's do this, now this activity, this, so that time for them to actually just sit and talk, get a clear understanding about some things that might be going on, them to actually just talk to their neighbor, communicate, share, some things they may have never thought about, those scenarios that were brought up. And just sometimes, and then sometimes they get so stone cold on their opinion and I'm right and that's it. And just to hear a different perspective, even though they may not admit to it, they open up to it as well. So
I was going to say the same thing. I think that the activities are really cool because they're not personal, and so they're not going to be uncomfortable. And the eighth graders, they don't have to have an opinion about, the best thing in life right now. They could really talk about hang gliding, which, it takes away all the pressure.
and at times when we do, we always have like an agreement before we start anything. We don't say personal names, because we do try to talk about some very tough subjects like conflict with others and, touching other people's belongings or happiness or sadness. So if they do need to talk about something personal, they say we or those people or that person, so that it takes the pressure of them feeling like they're, outing themselves or outing another individual. So before we start anything, we always make sure we have agreements and, talking to others politely. And we establish that first, and then we go on to especially those tough subjects.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so some frequently asked questions, and honestly, some of these we kind of talked about a little bit as we went, but isn't this taking away from instructional time? And I think K to 8, and please feel free to jump in and correct me because I don't want to speak for any other age group. On the front end, it does take time, but when my students can resolve conflict, they understand how to be accountable, they understand how to own up to things that they are done or disagreements that are happening. On the back end, it saves time because I'm not addressing and nitpicking at small behaviors like maybe I would outside of them, not just learning these things, but learning them all together because they'll hold each other accountable. Now, when you told her she was flat, that was not empathetic. And it's like, yes, you are right, good. And then I don't even have to say anything. Is there anything either of you would like to add? Do the students really like this? I would say, and again, jump in, as much as they really like anything. Some days they love it, some days it's not their favorite, but I've not ever had any students say, I hate this is the worst thing Shaker ever could have done to me. I mean, it's ebb and flow just like everything with them in education. Every day is not the best day, but I think that they do find value in it if they're being honest with themselves or asked one-on-one, not in front of like their peers. Anything to... How are we measuring the success of the program? That is an interesting question, and right now, I know the district is maybe looking at some more tangible ways district-wide and then within buildings, but the biggest thing is comparing disciplines. So going back to the connection to Shaker and trying to reduce behavior incidents and suspensions by 10%, that would probably be the number one indicator right now, and as we learn and grow with the program, I'm sure that there'll be more targeted assessments and measures of the success of the program.
Seeing the results in the classroom, kind of how I noticed my students are becoming more caring, kind, empathetic towards one another. So it would be teacher by teacher, but I think that's still a way to see success. And what happens if a student just doesn't want to participate? I would say in my classroom, I kind of allow students to have their time. So I might set a timer and say, okay, I would love for you to join us, and I continue to go back to, we would love for you to be here in the circle with us if students are not participating, especially during the greeting. We might greet them even though they're not in the circle. We'll just all say a big good morning so-and-so, and then that might, kind of open them up and they'll come over because now we've all said good morning to them. So we still include them, but I mean, even as adults, sometimes it just takes a little extra love or a little extra time. So, yeah.
Make a note on that, and I love that you do that because they're still listening.
Yes.
They can still hear everything
Mhm.
that you're doing, and I think one thing about all of this is teaching kids the empathy that you have no idea what that kiddo's day was like before he or she got there. You have no idea his past 5 years. You just have no idea. And so maybe some days there are days that it's either a topic or something that they just can't do. And I like that you still include them, and I'm so glad they still get to hear. So.
And why isn't the high school doing Caring School Community?
So right now, I'm sorry, that wasn't like a setup, I'm sorry. Right now, the Caring School Community curriculum, the books only go K to 8, the actual curriculum only goes K to 6, and I'll explain what that means. The 6th, 7th, and 8th grade curriculum is very similar. So the activity that we did, it would be the same activity, but the scenarios would change based upon what grade you're in. So similar themes, but it's not, okay, I did this in 6th and 7th grade, don't ask me about winning a Nobel Peace Prize one more time. It changes per grade. Right now, there is not Caring School Community curriculum for grades 9 through 12. So I think that Shaker is investigating if there's a way to build upon Caring School Community, or if there's maybe even another social emotional learning program that would fit and merge nicely with Caring School Community. So the decision was not made because it's not just as important in high school, it's just that this high quality and data-driven program is not available for grades 9 through 12.
My daughter is 11th grader. So when she was in the high school, she did community circles, right? And I hated that when she got to high school that they don't do it. So do you know if they're gonna try to have some kind of circle? I just thought it was so powerful for the kids. They could really like run it themselves by the time they got to 9th grade.
Right, they could.
I mean, this is feedback that we can, take back to our building.
Oh, did you? I have not specifically heard anything about them adopting the circles, but as Desmarie said, it's definitely something that we can bring up because it was, and I know even when I see kids that are at the high school, man, Miss Sharp, it's not the singing we miss. We miss those community circles, and it's like, yeah, because I mean, it really does help them to feel like a family. So it's nice that that's something that they remember. Anything else? Any other questions that we can answer for you?
So the reduction, So the reduction in suspension rate, that's 10% district-wide. I assume, are most of the suspensions happening at the high school? I'm just trying to see like kind of where the cohort happens, right? So as you look at it, right, so if we're trying to do that as a district and it's 10% overall, like, we look at like kind of measurement techniques, like when that happens, right? Because if they're getting it, K through 4, 5, and 6, first year is, the first go, like, I'm wondering if that will really make a dent. And that's just something to just kind of put out there, but.
When data is being, when data is being analyzed, generally it's a school, each individual school is analyzing their own data.
Okay.
So I'm not sure about the high school just because that's not where I teach. But we're saying 10% district-wide, but really each individual school is kind of coming up with plans and things that they need, because honestly, even at the K-4 level, Lomon's needs are very different than Onaway's, are very different than Mercer's. So it's a,
Well, now it's state law.
right,
K to 3, you can't.
You have to-
And now 4 through 8 is coming, and then 9
right.
through 12 is coming.
Well, and even at the middle school here with the restorative practices, and trying to keep the kids in and not.
It is making every
Yeah,
effort.
And so I think the data will be harder and harder actually to gather, to even say it's 10%, just because you're doing some other things that I think it might be harder to gather.
Yes. And like a direct cause also, because like you said, when we're doing 3 things, then kind of breaking the data down to know, okay, well, which of the 3. So very, very good points. I wish I had better answers for you. Those are kind of some of the conversations that are happening district-wide, and things that honestly we're kind of working through as a district. So thank you for bearing with us as we kind of like find our way.
We also want to be respectful of you all's time. It is past our 7:30 time, but if you need to leave, feel free to write your question down on a sticky note and leave it with us. Or if you have time to.
I was gonna say, if you have time, we have time, so please feel free. Thank you for coming out on this cold, chilly night.